Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Front Row Baseball Network. Monday afternoon, I have Mike Trombley, former retired Major League Baseball pitcher, mostly out of the Twins organization. Mike, thank you for hopping on a Monday afternoon. My audience is like I explained to you before: youth baseball players from 8 to 18, some college, travel coaches, youth coaches, and parents. So I
Oh,
wanted
well,
to
thanks
bring
for
you.
having me.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
So I wanted to bring you on to give my audience your insight on going through a Massachusetts boy going on and getting drafted by the Twins. And it was at 89, I think it was, and then
Right, 1989.
and then I remember in 92 you showed up at the end and you were like, you were during that middle of that pennant race, right? In
Right.
92.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
can tell us all about that stuff. So the stage is yours, my friend.
Right.
Tell us, how
Well,
did you get
it's
going?
funny. It's interesting because I kind of look at this as, I came out of Western Massachusetts, was not a hotbed for a lot of Major League Baseball players, and I call this a real blessing. I'm not trying to be humble here, but I'm very happy that I kind of went through that. I played a lot of sports. I played football. I played baseball. I played basketball. I was never for one second think I was going to play Major League Baseball, especially even in professional baseball. It just kind of happened by accident. What I'm getting at is I was kind of lucky to not go through that because there was no expectations. There was no expectations to how devastating it was going to be if I don't make it, because I never thought it was going to happen in the first place. Like I said, like you mentioned, I went to Duke. I went to Duke to be a student. I did get recruited to go to Duke, and I had a fabulous time. We weren't very good in college. We were getting beat up by Florida State and Clemson and Georgia Tech in those days, but I didn't care. I enjoyed every minute of being at Duke and playing for their program, and they're really good nowadays, but not when I was there. So again, it was a situation where I was not going to think that I was playing professionally after my freshman year. I think after my sophomore year, I went to the Cape Cod Baseball League, and that's when I first started thinking about, hey, maybe I would get drafted. But again, it was not ever a thought that I'd do this for a living, and never thought for one second that I'd make enough money to ever make a difference. And so I was just a guy, like playing baseball, and enjoyed doing it. And I'm very thankful that I went through there, because so many people that I've met along the way, and we'll talk about these travel leagues and all the money that parents spend and all this pressure they're putting on the kids. You play baseball because it's fun, and you do all these activities in school or outside of school because they're fun, and they got to be fun. If they're not fun, then don't do them. So I was very, very, very thankful that it happened the way it did. And I have people ask me all the time, what am I most proud of? And because I didn't think I was going to be a professional baseball player, I enjoyed every day. And as a Yankee fan, if I pitched against the Yankees too much, I was not going to be around too much. So every day I enjoyed putting on a uniform. And how lucky am I to play with Cal Ripken and Kirby Puckett and those guys. So the best thing I can say to coaches out there and parents out there is let your kid have fun, whether they're playing baseball or field hockey or in band, or they're a sculptor or they're a guitar player, whatever it is. They got to do it because they like it. And if you push them too much, is not a good thing. Because my father, never once did he ever say to me, Mike, you need to go outside and practice. You need to do that. He was never that type of guy. And my dad was kind of old school. People would think you wouldn't be like that. You'd think that you really put the thumb down and say, get out there and throw some pitches. Never, ever did he say that to me. And I'm very thankful that it was that way.
So basically, it was you had no expectations, and in '89 you get drafted.
No, and also I'm really thankful that the timing was. If I grew up today, I'm not sure, because there's so much information out there of the percentages of making the big leagues and playing professionally and getting a scholarship and the cost of college, that I think it's added pressure. But I'm very thankful that it was in the '80s, that none of that stuff was there.
None of this travel existed. Nothing.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Interesting story. I was how I ended up at Duke. I actually went to Deerfield Academy after my senior year in high school. I ended up going a post-grad year for Deerfield Academy because I really wanted to go to Dartmouth. Well, this is a true story. I was sitting in my advisor's office, and he says, Mike, I understand you're going to go to Dartmouth, and I was going to play football and baseball there. And I said, yeah, I'm pretty much all set. I kind of verbally committed to him. And so he says, he goes, Mike, you're a pretty good pitcher. What about going to better weather? It's kind of cold up in Dartmouth territory. And I said, and I didn't think much about it. He got on the phone, and he called and he said he called the Duke Athletic and talked to the baseball coach, and he says, I have a gentleman in my office who really wants to come to Duke. Long story short is the coach sent someone on to look at me pitch. The next day, I pitched pretty well against the Northfield Mount Herman team at Deerfield. And long story short is the next weekend I was at Duke, a recruiting trip. That's how I ended up there. So my whole recruiting process was basically a week long.
Wow.
So that's how it happened. So, and I apologize to the Dartmouth coach. He was a great guy, and I really wanted to go there, but I went down to 75-degree weather in Durham, and it won me over.
And you go from a really tough Duke team, and you get drafted, and then next thing you know, in '92, you're thrown into a pennant race.
Right.
The Twins.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. And for you coaches out there and for the parents, and this is a really interesting story. I always say ignorance is bliss. When I got called up, and I did pretty well in the minor leagues, there's no question. You got to stay injury-free. You got to be a good teammate, but you got to pitch well. Plain and simple, you have to pitch well. And so I did pretty well in the minor leagues, and I came up along, and the Twins were very good. They won the World Series in '87. They won the World Series in '91, and they were very good. We were very, very good in '92.
Very good team.
And I came up and was basically thrown into this pennant race. And here I am pitching against Canseco and McGuire and Ricky Henderson. I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. So, but take a step further, a couple years later, the Twins weren't very good.
Right.
And if you look at my career, I was made the big leagues in '92. I spent about 3 years in the minor leagues, then made the Twins in '92. But then I got sent down to AAA in '94, '95, '96. And if I was with a team, and I want to thank the Twins for not being very good because we weren't going to get a lot of free agents. We weren't the Yankees. We weren't in a pennant race. And so they gave a lot of young guys second and third chances, which I was very thankful for. I didn't realize at the team, but I was just so happens I was with a team and not in the pennant race. And so I got a lot of second and third chances, which with my ability, I needed a second, third chances. So it was a terrific situation. The right things were in place for me to make it.
Right. In '95, I think you switched from starter to reliever full time.
Well, it was they basically switched me because I was a very bad starter. So I went from
so you didn't last long.
Well, sorry.
You didn't last long in innings wise.
No,
I mean,
you
didn't give up many home
I
runs.
wasn't getting the job done. So I don't know whether they made me a reliever or realized, hey, he's not that great of a starter. So I became a reliever in '96. I started throwing a split finger fastball again. And that really made a difference in my career because really, I don't know if I was that great a pitcher, but my good years were '96 to 2001. I threw it pretty good and my split was good.
Yeah, 99, you had a really good year out of the pen. You had the 24 saves. And then you bolted on them. You went to the yellow.
Again, with my ability, when someone offers a 3-year deal, you don't look too hard at it. You sign your name before you read it. So I ended up going to the Orioles, and it was a great. I'm so thankful. The Twins, the Orioles, and just a short time with the Dodgers, I was around great people, really, really good people and good teammates.
Listen, you went through the grind for 11 years.
Yeah.
In my league, I'm from Fort Lee, New Jersey. So when we have our youth baseball league, we have a former Major League Baseball pitcher come and teach our players how to pitch.
Right.
Right. And I will always ask him. I mean, he spent about 10 years as well in the majors. And he always said to these kids, there's always someone looking for to take over your job.
Absolutely.
Always.
Right. Yes. And people look at it. And again, I know the common theme is, he played Major League Baseball. How great was it? Listen, in 80% of my career, it was a roller coaster that I couldn't get off. And it was uncomfortable. And it was stressful. And it was not I look back and my father said, you'll look back someday and really enjoy it. I didn't really enjoy it because it was such a stressful thing. Like you said, every single outing, there was a guy waiting in the wings to take my spot. So it was the upset stomach. It was couldn't sleep. It was worrying if I'm going to be on the team tomorrow. So I wasn't blessed with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. It was not Ken Griffey Jr. at the plate. So every single day was a grind for me. Right. And honestly, it was a great life lesson. And it made me think about doing other things later on, which I'm a financial advisor now. And thank goodness I basically went to Duke and I went to school to be a financial advisor, not to be a baseball player.
Well, I guess you got your dream, right?
Right. Exactly right. I would say baseball happened by accident for me.
So you have a son, right, that went through the whole baseball routine and everything?
Yeah, my son actually, my wife went to Duke also. My son was thankfully is more blessed with my wife's genes than my genes. He's a fast center fielder. He just graduated from University of Rochester in 2020. But he had a great experience. And for all the parents out there looking for their kid to play in college, that's a key word, play. Don't just worry about scholarships. Don't worry about all that other stuff because they're few and far between the scholarships. Even if you are going to get a scholarships, it's only partial the majority of time. And pick the school you want to go to be a student. And so there's a lot of reasons why baseball won't work out or any sport won't work out. Make sure you're at the right school anyway. But he went there and played for 4 years and had a great experience. Went to the regionals. He got lucky enough to be on a pretty good program. Went to the regionals 2 years, but he had a great experience. And I can't thank the coach in Rochester enough because it was a really good fit for my son. He's out in the working force now, but he's not. He had no aspirations of playing pro ball.
He enjoyed his ride.
Absolutely. Right.
So did he go to a public high school or a parochial?
Yeah, he actually was very similar to me. He played football and baseball in Minnetonka Regional High School, which is in Western Massachusetts, in Wilbraham, Massachusetts. And great experience. He played, did a lot of stuff. And but he got recruited. And I shared this with you a little bit before we started about I got caught up in a little bit about my son getting recruited. Part of it was Mike Trombley's son. He's going to be a baseball player too. And he played on a travel team. I actually was helping coach the travel team. And he had some good opportunities because of his speed to maybe go to a bigger baseball school, not so much a better baseball school, but just a bigger name baseball school, maybe Division I. But it was I got caught up in that situation, which I feel very guilty about it sometimes because I think I took away some of his time as being a kid. And I said, hey, listen, you got to get out there. You got to get your name out there. You got to contact the coaches. And I'm sure it's very stressful to him, like every kid out there. And sometimes I wonder, what am I doing this for? Is this for him? Is this for me? And I'm sure every parent, scratches their head and say, does my kid want to do this? And I go back to the same old saying, if it's fun, they play this sport because it's fun. And don't push too hard. Let them tell you how hard they want to push.
Yeah, because I got parents that say, like here in New Jersey, we got, the bigger powerhouses are the parochials. Yep. And parents get kind of sucked in and say, I got to have my son play in one of these parochials. And I'm always saying, if you're good, they'll find you. And I've had plenty of interviews, and every professional athlete that I've spoken to, they said they find you.
Absolutely right. And the old joke is the better you are, the less you have to do because they'll find you anyway. But, listen, there's always a place. And I will say this for any parent that's looking for this, and I'm just talking about baseball, but any sport, if they're interested in playing sports, I'm a huge fan of sports. I think it teaches some great things and great values, and you take those through life. But look at the school first. I mean, rather than throw this big net out there and hope that somebody calls me and, recruits my son to play baseball. I'm using baseball as an example, but pick out some schools that are a good fit for him and then reach out to them. If I could do that again, I would really do that. Pick out 5 schools that my son would like to go, whether they're in the north or the south or the weather or the size of the school or they have his major, and then do it that way. And sometimes the answer is, hey, baseball is not a fit, or that sport is not a fit for me. Because people will say all the time, Division I's a job, Division II's a job, and Division III. Listen, every school that plays sport is going to be a job for the kids. It's going to be a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of time away from their college experience, which is not a bad thing. And I love playing baseball in college, but sometimes it can be overwhelming, and derail your view. I see a lot of Division I kids now, they get caught up in that washing machine. I got to get drafted. I got to get this, I get that. And honestly, a lot of it's not going to happen for those kids.
Well, now it's more about if you're a pitcher, how fast you throw, what's your velocity, with hitting, different, analytics are coming into the game.
Right.
And people, players like, if I don't hit 95 plus, I'm not going to make it. And what are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, unfortunately, that is reality. I mean, kids are throwing harder and harder these days. And unfortunately, analytics are a huge part in it because it's all statistics. We could go on forever about how these kids might throw it harder, but they don't know how to pitch. But I'm not in a position to say they know how to pitch or they don't know how to pitch. But if there was analytics, I never would have pitched. I don't think I've ever thrown the ball faster than 92 miles an hour in my life. And that's with, I don't know what kind of gun they use, but it wasn't going that fast. I was just basically from the school, learn how to pitch, get them out. That's baseball. But I don't like some of the stuff I go on. We always talk about all the time with my buddies about playing baseball, pickup game. And you learn how to play baseball. You play pickle. You learn how to steal a base when you're playing pickle with your buddies, when to run, when to stay, that little stuff like that. And it's getting away from that, I think. So I'm blessed that there wasn't analytics because I was not lighting up any gun. The joke is when I went to the Orioles and they started putting up the miles per hour on the scoreboard, I wasn't a happy guy because I didn't want anybody to see how fast I was throwing or how slow I was throwing it. So I think sometimes what's lost in the whole big picture is, yeah, the kid throws 95. Can you get him out? Can he win? And I see a lot of pitchers that don't get the opportunity that maybe can pitch even at a college level or whatever it may be, that, hey, this kid really knows how to pitch and win. And I always say every talk I've ever given to a group of pitchers or high school students, whatever it is, I said, what's the most important stat in pitching? I mean, if you could say what's most important, they all raise their hands and say, first pitch strikes, how hard you throw, this and that. I go, no, it's at the end of the game. Is there a W or an L next to your name? You're out there. It's a game. You're trying to win the game for your team. If you give up 5 runs in the first inning, let's hold them at 5. But what you see now a lot is the kid who gives up 5 runs in the first inning, and he thinks, oh my God, the game's over. It's all about me. The scouts aren't going to like me. The colleges aren't going to like me. The game's over. And say, no, the scout, or the college recruiter, what he's looking for is how you react to that situation. Because you can learn a lot more from bad situations. Everybody can be a good sport when you're doing well. Let's be a sport when things aren't going well. So,
well, that's you nailed it. You nailed it right on the head, because I look at it like with my pitchers. I'm coaching 11, 12-year-old group right now, and I coached higher. I coached up to like 16 years old with doing Connie Mack over here years ago. And I always used to tell my pitchers, your job is not to walk anybody. First priority. Don't walk anybody.
Right.
You got 7 guys behind you, 1 guy in front of you.
Right.
Pitch. Learn how to pitch. Get the locations. Don't try to overwhelm. Just find oh my God. Just find a nice fluid form to go.
Absolutely. Yes.
And today I watch kids that they're so compelled at how hard. Even my son, he'll talk to my son's best friend is like 5. He's bigger than me. He's like 5'9".
Right.
Yeah, the kid can throw. If he chucks it up the right way, he can get it up to like 65, 70. But I keep telling him, can you throw it for strikes?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. And I'll have so many pitchers, parents or pitchers will say, I'm going to start throwing a cutter. My first question is why? And they never know the answer. They don't know why they're throwing a cutter because they heard it on TV. They heard Mariano Rivera throws a cutter, so I got to throw a cutter. They don't know why they're using it. And then it leads to why are you throwing a changeup? Why are you throwing a four seam? Why are you throwing a breaking ball? Why are you learning the stuff you're doing? This is all part of the game. And honestly, I love baseball. It's a great game. But let's keep it in context. This is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. And honestly, the joke is with all my buddies, hey, you don't want to pitch 6 innings and pass it to the next guy. You want to pitch the whole game.
Right.
I mean,
those days are over with now.
Who wants to come off the field? Nobody does. So I was joked that when your mom called you when it got dark, you and your buddies were ticked off. That should be the same way.
Yeah, nobody wanted to be the first one to go home.
Right.
The game was over. We all waited till I grew up in an Italian neighborhood, so we had the whistles. Once you had the second whistle, we were like in a 2-minute warning before they came out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're talking about the same thing. It's some of the things that are so, listen, there's no question the money wows everybody and the college scholarships wow everybody. And somehow I think parents, and I'm picking on the parents a little bit, but I think sometimes the parents think that they're measured what kind of parent they are, the more the kid gets recruited. It's silly. Your measure of what kind of kid you got. Is he coachable? Is he a good kid? Is he polite? Does he do well in school? That's how we're measured. Not is this Florida State calling me to give me a full ride. So
I I look at it today, it's like when you get to like that 12, 13-year-old group, you go from like today we have 50, 70 fields, we
Right.
didn't have that back when
Right.
we played, right? So now
I
you
kind
go
of
to
like
the-
that, by the way. I wasn't a big fan of it, but now I am. I like that.
you know what? I wasn't either. I think they started too young
Yes,
because at 10 years old, no catcher's throwing out
I agree.
it just becomes like a run. It's like
Right.
you're on third,
Right. Yeah, they can play around the ages a little more, but I kind of like that. I always thought I was a big fan of Little League. My son played Little League in Fort Myers, Florida when we lived there. And I always felt like it's just too small of a field. And when a kid who's 8 years old is pitching to a 12-year-old, when the 12-year-old weighs 180 pounds and the 8-year-old weighs 80 pounds, someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So somehow, some way, we had to make a little change. And I kind of like, hopefully, they can come up with a better system.
The 50-70, you start to see it now better with the 11 and 12s because now the catch, when you had the pitchers didn't know how to hold a runner on.
Right.
The catchers barely can make the throw.
Right.
They'll make it to on a little league field, but now you go on that extra 10.
Right.
So it was that's the part I never liked about the game. They start that at too young of an age.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the ongoing argument about saying, listen, we want to play real baseball. The sooner you learn to hold the runner on, but the game's not enjoyable. Like
No,
you
you're
said, the game is
stealing,
not
you're
enjoyable.
stealing bases, like 24 stolen
Right.
bases every game. I mean, that's not
Right.
reality. That's not baseball.
I know. I agree with that.
It's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then what happens is these parents, they take these kids and they keep going. And I little bit by me, I now take them back a little bit because I was kind of like you a little bit. And I said, I got to take a step back. I really don't want to coach my son, but I got stuck coaching club ball for my son.
Right.
And I have to be coach, instead of parent.
Sure.
And
Are you harder on your own kid than the other kids?
not anymore. No.
Oh, I was.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, I was.
I've been coaching since 85. So I coached so many years without having someone.
Oh, yeah.
I was always this. And then I remember when he started playing T-ball, and I get frustrated. So me and my neighbor, his son was on, we'd switch.
Right.
Like, we just get away.
Right.
Then when he got to he played like 8U travel and let another guy run the team.
Right.
He played right. You just let him. But the only thing I always got on him, but he used to be a little bit lazy.
Right.
I can't deal with laziness to any player. If you're on the field, you got to be like, I got to stop you, right? Because we grew up that way, right?
Right.
You just never wanted to stop. And two, the tantrums they pull. My son will have whatever it is, be on the mound and he just have a tantrum, start throwing a glove. I got to take him out of the game.
Right.
I would do that to another player, so I got to do that to him.
Right.
But he's matured. He's a big baseball junkie now. So
Right.
But the only video game he really plays for the core is MLB The Show.
Oh,
He is he's like me. He's just a complete baseball junkie.
Right.
So, and he's learned, like I tell him, we start to learn to tweak. When he reached 11 past year, COVID, he kind of missed the whole entire year when he was 10.
Right.
So he struggled, because now he's facing, at 10 years old, we have the minors. So it's like 9 and 10-year-olds. So he would have been like the better players. He missed that whole year.
Oh, right.
A lot of our players missed
right.
So they skipped it. Now they go to 11. Now they got to face the 12-year-old pitchers. And
yeah,
it was a big challenge.
Sure.
Right. And they struggled. And you got to take it. So you got to struggle. Now the game becomes mental, I tell them.
Right. Right.
The game becomes mental. But there was parents, you look at when I was coaching club or I was being a parent at club, I would watch other parents like, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to go here. I'm like, got to take a chill. Right. I don't want the kid to burn out.
Right. Oh, and also, I mean, I'm picking out a few people that will go unnamed, but I know for sure it's the frustration of the parent living through their kid. I mean, come on. Like we say, we play baseball or we paint or whatever the heck we do because it's fun. Make sure it's fun for your kid, and let's not live vicariously through our son trying to get him to pitch for the New York Yankees because it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, like I remember when my son was younger, we got like a travel game and he would just go ballistic, right? In the car, and I'm like, sometimes you got to, you got to put some tough love on him, right?
Right.
To understand
Right.
what he has. It's never about him. You got to worry about this, that. You're throwing stuff. You know, he got it. And now it's an enjoyable because he's still the same way. If we lose a game, he's in the car. He is, he wears it. He takes it home with him.
Right.
And I tell him, you got to, I'm not crazy. And I go, this is what happens.
Right. Right.
This is what happens.
And it's so funny looking back when my son was 11, I'm going, nothing he ever did was ever going to matter anything to any college coach or any high school coach who's 11 going, what am I getting all upset about? You know what I mean? I catch myself, but I can easily look back at it now. Obviously 54, my son's 23 or 24 now, and it's different now. I look at it.
Did your son have any stress being that he's the son of Mike Trombley?
Yeah. Actually, after 8th grade, my son had a good arm. He wasn't a big kid, but he had a good arm. But he didn't want to pitch anymore. No more. He just said, no, I don't want any part of that. And honestly, he should have, because would have been a pretty good pitcher in high school, would have been good enough to help, but he wanted no part of that. And so I think looking back, maybe that was part of it. But
was it?
And my wife was always in my ear. My wife was an athlete too, so she had a good head on her shoulders, know how it worked. And she goes, listen, you need to calm down, let him do what he wants to do. And if he wants to, and honestly, looking back now, and I really mean this, part of me wishes my son had no interest in baseball. I wish my son played guitar when he was young, but he didn't stick with it because kind of sports took over his life a little bit. I wish my son played guitar still. And part of me wishes he never played baseball, which I love the game. And I love watching my son play, but there's so much out there. I mean, he's out in the working world, lives in Charlotte, North Carolina now, and he's rock climbing, he's golfing now. And I'll tell you, some of it was the guilt now looking back and say, man, if he didn't play baseball, he could have done all this stuff. He would have been a good tennis player. He would have kept playing guitar. So anyway, it's looking back, I sound like my old man now talking about, you're going to look back someday and realize some of the stuff you did weren't that great. So
yeah, I kind of agree with you because I don't want to, I get caught up on it, right? So I'm like, the summer, like we were in our district little leagues and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I don't want him to play district little league and then play summer ball because they kind of overlap.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? This year I said, you know what? Just take the summer off. We'll finish district all-stars. Wherever you finish.
Right.
And then take the rest of the summer off.
Right.
And just enjoy yourself and be a boy, and I think that kind of helps. And then you get the you get the hunger to go back into fall ball.
Right.
And
oh no, absolutely right. And by the way, I know what we're both on the same page here is everything we're talking about. Baseball is a great game. And unfortunately, we're talking like dads here, and some of the stuff's, coming out as negative. But listen, it's a great game. But I think people got to check themselves because I have a lot of friends who their sons are going through the college experience now, and they're wrapped up in this draft thing. This I'm going to get signed. I want to play professional baseball. I'm like, guys, you'll know when you're a young man if you have enough to make it. And honestly, I really mean this. I'm not trying to be humble. If I did today, I couldn't make the major leagues. I just don't have it. I don't have enough skill to make the major leagues now. Absolutely not. None. Not even close. I don't think I can make it through A ball.
Wow.
I just, because it's all about analytics. I did not throw the ball hard. I was not going to be in a situation where they gave me that many chances. And I really mean that. And at the time in 1992 and 93, I was pretty good. I mean, I threw the ball good. But looking at the way the guys throw now, and if you don't have, like you mentioned before, if you don't have that 95-mile-an-hour fastball, or if you can't run a 4.640 or 4.660, excuse me, or 4.440 or something like that, or a 6.460, you ain't doing it. Ain't happening.
If you're going to do that, you think Gaylord Perry and all those other guys who
absolutely right.
never make it.
Absolutely right. But I think people look back at the guys like that, or Dustin Pedroia's. Those guys will be fewer and far between because it is about analytics. It's whether you look the part, Right. And that's sad because a lot of guys over the years, the Greg Maddoxes of the days, you imagine Greg Maddox not in major leagues because he doesn't throw hard enough? I mean, it's crazy. But unfortunately,
you got Glavine too.
Absolutely.
You got all these guys that were phenomenal. Yeah. And they were pitchers. Yes. I look at those guys were pitchers. They knew how to command the plate. They got they got the calls because they were always around the plate.
Right.
You know,
and they were throwing a pitch because they knew the next 3 pitches they were going to throw, and they're setting the guy up for this and this and this. And that's what's lost now is guys are just throwing as hard as they can in the gym and saying, look how hard I threw. I'm like, that's good. Was it a strike? Did you get him out? Losing the specialness of baseball, which I think is really cool.
Going back to your son, he decided not to pitch in high school. Why? Did he ever give you an answer?
No, I think honestly, like I could pick apart and look back at a couple games where he felt like he was out there not doing as well as he hoped to. And maybe the pressure he was feeling like maybe being Mike Trombley's son. Because again, we're in Wilbraham, Massachusetts. We're not, there was not too many major leaguers out there. And he's the major leaguer's son that is out on the mound, maybe not pitching too well. And he just said, I don't need this. And he was a pretty good center fielder. He's a good hitter, really fast. And he knew that it was just a part-time position. So I think I'm proud of him for saying that because I never questioned him. Like, cool, no big deal. There was a few times I needed him, but it was never a choice. So he was okay with that.
See, I don't look at it and say you're speaking in a negative. I think you're speaking from a first person, that reality. And some parents do need to hear this kind of stuff because it's not that we're speaking negative, it's that we're speaking real. You know?
No, I agree with that. No, I was just trying to cover ourselves in case anybody says, man, they're so negative.
Yeah, look, it's not. I don't think I never take it negative. Parents will ask me, and I give them the real what I feel. Like I feel that, you have some really gifted ball players, and let them go play in high school, in their own high school.
Right.
Okay. Let them be the rock star of their high school. Let them enjoy being the rock star.
Right.
All right. Because today, like we didn't have this, but now you got summer league, you got different showcase, you got all this other stuff.
Right.
That you're going to do.
Right.
So let them be the rock star of your high school. Let them be that guy. Because if you go to the big parochials, you're just as good as your last pitch or whatever, because the next year, the next recruitment class coming in, you're gone.
Right.
So we're not
being and think about it as a high school kid. I know we're older now, we're about the same age, but what's it about high school? It's about being around your buddies, your girlfriend watching you come out to play, talking about the test you had, talking about maybe the party you're going to go on Saturday night. That's what high school is about. I mean, that's about enjoying the experience. It's not about, oh my God, is this coach coming to see me pitch today? I mean, we need to put that to rest. It's about having some fun and being a kid. Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest things that these players have to have, because right here, I mean, we're up in the Northeast, right? So we don't have the luxury of playing down in Florida.
Right. 20, 22 games, and that's it, right?
So here we are. Now they're starting with tryouts for club teams now and start going in, and in January they start training and all this other stuff. And I'm not a big fan of the analytics. I've never been, because I've always been like, you could say to yourself today, you say like, I can never pitch, but you didn't have, the tools like they have today.
Right.
You never know. You could have been jacked up more if that's what you needed.
Right. I could have thrown harder. Right.
Yeah. It's like when they talk about, Ted Williams couldn't hit today. Right. And you say, could these players play in Ted Williams' era?
Right.
Because these players are jacked up. They got all the best modern technology. Ted Williams didn't.
Right. Yeah, that's a good argument, because I always say that it's got to be based upon who you played against then. That's all you can do, because it's unfair, like you're saying, to say, would Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs today? I don't know. I'm not saying he would, but if he grew up today, he might have.
If he had the same advantages as these guys, he might hit 70.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So it's absolutely right. I think that's the one thing I will say about travel ball is, and one of my pet peeves is, and I help coach travel ball, is I'm not totally against travel ball. I think that gives them a good opportunity to not only get recruited, but to play some better ball. Sometimes, these kids in smaller high schools or don't have a really good program, to be around kids that are better brand of baseball, I think that makes you better. But the people that are, and I don't want to badmouth, because I know a lot of people that do that, is you got to pay money to play on these teams, which I understand it's costly. But I think as a travel coach, our job is to give every single kid the same opportunity. What drives me crazy about these travel teams sometimes is and I'll give you an example. I have 2 catchers. One kid's definitely better than the other kid. Well, both kids pay the same amount, and they both want to get recruited to whatever level they want to get recruited to in college. Okay? So I think every player on the travel team has got to be considered equal, an equal part of the puzzle. And sometimes I think travel ball, and I was part of one that tried to win too much to get a good reputation. And honestly, looking back now, who cares if we won? Who cares? All it meant was 3 more hours on the field that we were going to get home 3 hours later. That's all it meant. Didn't mean anything that everybody thought we were better or recruited more. I just think that these travel teams there's some value to it, but just make sure it's done the right way. Give every single kid the same shot in getting showcased in the same way.
Yeah,
equal playing time.
When I coached club ball back in the late 90s, early 2000, it was like brand new. Nobody really. And we go to these tryouts, and I said, you know what? If we're going to go play I need 8 pitchers. I need 6, 7. I want pitchers.
Right.
And I need 2, 3 catchers, and then the rest I'll figure it out. Right. And that's what I always went by. Like even this year, I came back and coached club ball this fall season.
Right.
Every pitcher basically an inning, because I wanted them to be exposed to being pitching.
Right.
I didn't want to just carry the same kid to keep pitching. I wanted them to all learn how to pitch. Now I come back. I know I got 2 guys that I want to start getting some more innings next year, but I thought it was better we work it through the fall, through the winter, than just throwing them out there.
Right.
And I work with the catchers and stuff. Just that's the way I do things. I agree with you. I bat Cinderella. I don't really care. Everybody's got a bat.
Right.
Oh,
sure. That's just the way it is.
I was blessed I had a good team.
Right.
So it was nice that I could just go and plug and play. You go play short today. Go.
Right. Oh, don't get me wrong. We're trying to win. There's no question about that. When you're out there, we're trying to win. But I think that when you're playing the same catcher in the back-to-back games, when the other kid paid as much money doesn't get a chance to play, I'm not saying to not try to win. Well, listen, our team's a team. We're going to try to compete as hard as we can to win, but everyone gets a fair chance.
But you have to. I preach. Forget about how good we are, or how individually good we are. It's about the team.
Right.
Because you're going to get into those tough situations where you got to really stick together, because, and I always tell my son and all his buddies, you look at the Dodgers, stacked. The team is stacked.
Right.
They didn't win the World Series.
Right. I know it. By the way, the playoffs were really, really entertaining this year.
It was.
I'm in Red Sox country up here, so it was very entertaining.
Well, listen, you guys for a rebuild year was pretty good.
Pretty good. Alex Cora,
the Yankees,
pretty good guy. Yeah, I played with Alex Cora. I was actually with the Dodgers. Alex Cora was the first guy I got traded from the Orioles to the Dodgers, and all I had were black and orange spikes, and he handed me a pair of blue spikes to wear that night, my very first game. So I'm always thankful to him. He was a good guy.
So how was
good manager too?
How was Kirby Puckett? How was Kirby Puckett?
He was Mr. Baseball. He was funny. He was. I say this all the time. He was the best guy to have on your team ever. I mean, he was Mr. Baseball. And I played with Cal, and again, nothing against Cal, but I knew Kirby better than Cal. I played with him longer, and I saw what Kirby brought to Minnesota. He was just funny, and I mean, he was. Every stadium he went to, people were cheering him. He was that important. I mean, people loved him. And honestly, he deserved a lot of it. It was a very sad story when he died so young. But he was and I was very lucky to be around a lot of good.
You had Winfield on that team as well,
Winfield
right?
Winfield was on our team in 93, played with Molitor in 96, played with Cal. And I was so lucky to be on some great teams with great teammates. And honestly, I just took it for granted because that's all I knew. But I had Herbeck and Winfield and Puckett and Aguilera and Molitor. It was just tremendous. You've seen that in Baltimore. Great people.
Would Puckett make it today?
He would. He was that good. He was that good. He was special. Like, you know what I mean? He could just, I mean, we could talk all day long about steroids and training and all stuff like that. But when the ball's coming at you, I don't care if you got a bat this big or this big, you got to hit it.
Right.
And he could hit it pretty darn good.
Yeah,
he was a special player.
He
was fast, and he could throw, and he could do everything.
I remember when he came up, I think, in 85. I think it was in 85. He was like a twig.
Yeah. Like
him and Gwynn. Gwynn was the same thing. Gwynn was a twig.
Right.
And then he came out there like big belt. I'm like, these guys will hit falling off, get out of bed, they'll hit. They don't.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
He was a really good hitter. Mahler was a very good hitter. That's why sometimes first time I mentioned to you is how fortunate I was to not count on anything and enjoy every minute in the big leagues, because I remember watching Mike Mussina throw a bullpen, or watching Kirby Puckett or Mahler take batting practice. It's incredible. I mean, incredible. I mean, really shockingly amazing. Amazing. I'm sitting here I'm watching some guys throw a bullpen going, I'm in the same league as he is. I mean, he's good. He's just that good. I never realized how good Mike Mussina was until I played for the Orioles. I always knew he was good when I was on the Twins, but watching him throw a bullpen and watching him every day, wow, he was good. And I'm not just saying Mike was the only one. There's a lot of guys like that. Just how good they are.
I was so pumped when they got him.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he did real well. One of the very few long-term contracts ever by a pitcher that actually worked out.
He never broke down.
Right.
And I think he broke down the year before he's retired or whatever.
Yeah.
But, he won 20 his last year.
Right. Yeah.
He never won 20.
Yeah.
That year.
Special guys. He was smart, very smart, went to Stanford, very smart guy. And I think that helped him too, because he thought about it. He didn't just throw, he thought. He was a thinker. So
I remember that the 03 game against the Red Sox in Game 7. He came in and stopped the bleeding, and he came in the middle of relief, and he shut down the Red Sox that game.
Right. Yeah.
To have them come back.
Absolutely.
Against Pedro.
Right.
Yeah. That's a bull. That's a tank.
Yeah.
I always love Moose.
Right.
So today, you look at my question I want to ask you is that these pitchers today, why are they so prone to breaking down? Tommy Johns, all these problems that they're having.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. If you look at it, saying they throw every single pitch 100%. 100%. I mean, they're throwing their fastball, and now I'm not saying they might throw 97% of the time. You know what I mean? Like max. I mean, when I learned how to pitch, you throw your fastball, I don't know, 85% of, and then you try to juice it up when you get a guy who 2 or inside, but they're going 100%. So the harder you throw, the spin rate, the more you try to spin it, or the harder you try to throw, there's more wear on the arm. And I talked to a coach with the Orioles a couple of years ago, and I asked him that question. I said, what are these guys? Why can't they make it past 4, 5, 6 innings? He goes, Mike, they're throwing every single pitch 100%. They're gassed. They're not. It's like a racehorse trained to run a quarter of a mile. Then all of a sudden you ask them to run 3/4 of a mile. I mean, once you're trained to do that, it's hard to do that. You can't do that. So I don't think, and I use this term and I hear the word, these pitchers are soft. They're not soft. They're trained to do what they're doing. So I think that strain on the arm is a big factor of it. I also think when you're paying a guy $20 million a year, you're going to make sure that arm's not hurt, as opposed to the 60s and 70s when it was the macho thing to say, is your arm hurt? No. Nowadays, listen,
you're not getting me
$20 million. I'm asking them and say, you can't lie to me. If your arm's hurting, you're not going out there. So I think we're kind of, I shouldn't say babying them, but we're guiding them a little easier. So again, I used to be a little bit hard on the pitchers that couldn't throw more than 4 or 5 innings until I talked to the coach and realized what's really going on here, because I really think that's what baseball is now. I mean, they're going 100%. They're throwing it maximum effort all the time, and they're getting trained to throw 4 or 5 innings max.
But their careers are not going to last.
To throw a couple, have a 8-pitch inning or a 7-pitch inning. They might go longer than that, but everybody's swinging for the fences and striking out a lot. You don't have 3-pitch at bats anymore.
But these pitchers' careers probably won't last as long as like anybody else.
No, but
It's very hard.
But let me ask you, and honestly, we're talking as fans here. If you got two contracts worth 30 million, 40 million each, why would you want to?
No.
You're gonna want to play 20 years? I should say want to, but you don't need to.
Right.
When you're making it, back in the day when guys were making $50,000 a year, they had to play for 20 years because that's what their livelihood. Now they're rock stars. They're making so much money that they don't need to financially. And I'm not saying that they don't enjoy the game. It's just they don't have to financially anymore. I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, I'm a baseball history guy, and I don't want to hear that. But it's reality that I don't see. Everybody talks about the records being broken. I don't think you're going to see any records broken, not because the guys aren't talented enough or any records unbreakable. They won't play that long.
Right.
They don't need to play that long.
Right.
I mean, Buster Posey could have played 5 more years. Why did he shut it down? Well, who knows? Maybe he's breaking down. He's probably saying, I have enough money that I'll ever spend. Maybe he has got some physical stuff, but if he needed the money, he'd be playing.
Yeah. Posey, I just think he said, he can't be what he used to be.
Right.
And he's got to, so he could just say, I'm going now.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Those guys are like once.
Yeah. But he's financially comfortable. And I think that's part of it.
They all are.
Yeah.
They all are.
So it makes it easier decision, So who knows? I can't.
I just miss the guys that pitched like 15, 20. Look at Scherzer. I mean, Scherzer's on the brink of making 130 for $3 million for 3 years, and he's what, 37. Verlander. Right. I mean, it's still they lasted, but how many more of these guys? Like you won't see 300 game winners anymore.
No,
you just won't.
Absolutely not. And again, someone said the other day that the Ricky Henderson stolen base record, someone's going to steal 50 bases for 28 years and he still didn't break the record. Well, you're not going to see that anymore because who the heck's going to play for 20 years?
I still think the game will revolve back at some point.
So? I don't. I think the game will become more and more specialized. Like when we talked about the relievers and the with La Russa in the 80s, I think it's going to become more and more and more like what you're seeing today. I mean,
I'm just talking from a hitting standpoint. I just think the hitters the hitters are going to have to learn to hit the other way.
I agree with you on that one.
They're going to
I'm saying evolve in that way. I agree with you on that.
The pitchers, I think if the pitchers get the high strike zone again, the hitters have no other choice but to learn how to hit the other way.
Right. I agree with you. Yeah, it's an interesting point because someone asked me about the shift, and I think the shift is single-handedly might change the game more than other aspects because, like you said, hey, you want to get on base? Hit the ball the other way. And so slowly, guys are going to start hitting the ball the other way in order to get on, to beat the shift.
You know what was amazing? I was watching on a replay at MLB Network. They were showing the 82 Cardinal World Series against the Brewers, right?
Right.
And I'll never forget, Darryl Porter was the catcher.
Right.
And they showed a play, and they had to shift on Porter.
Right.
Because Darryl Porter would never hit the ball up.
Right.
And I just remember watching, I'm like, holy crap, they had to shift on him.
Right.
It was more of now it's part of, it's part of the game. And people complain like, oh, but listen, you play to win.
Sure.
Right? You play to win. If that's what it takes to win,
right.
That's what you do.
I agree with you. And people say like, I know the money's in the home run and guys have egos and they don't want to hit the ball the other way, but if they want to get on base and win world championships, they better learn to hit the ball the other way.
Yeah, I think it's going to come because the game.
I think so too.
I think we grew up. We loved first and third. We loved the hit and run. Right. We loved the bunt. We loved all that stuff. That's what I teach. I teach the bunting. I'm big into the bunting, moving the runners over, doing that stuff. I think the game, it had its glimpse with the 15 and 16 Royals. They would just put the bat on the ball, just hit the ball, good, solid pitching. Right. I think Davis was the reliever back there. They're just solid.
Right.
They just couldn't afford to keep them.
Right. Right.
That was the problem.
Right.
And I think people, you talk about the game and the time limit, and it's about the strikeouts. They have to get the strikeouts down.
I agree with you. And it's just this vicious cycle of, guys are learning to hit as kids and home runs and power. And, like I mentioned my son before, my son's a speedster. I said, Kyle, you don't want to hit the ball in the air. You want to hit the ball on the ground. I said, you get on base, you're going to steal. Every time you get on base, it's going to be a double because you can steal. So it's this ongoing. We need to get more and more people on the train here because you're right. The games are too long. No one's going to watch them. I mean, I watch very little games because it's just too long. The games are 3 hours. Takes a batter 5 minutes to get in the box. Takes the pitcher 5 minutes to throw a pitch. I'm like, I've been watching this game for a half hour. I've seen 3 pitches.
Oh, Mike, a Red Sox Yankee game is 4 hours.
Oh, right. It is torture. It's torture. And like we said before, it's with the pitching changes, it's well, then you add in instant replay, which is a whole other thing. I don't understand instant replay. We have umpires out for a reason. If we're going to use instant replay on one play, don't we use it on all of them? If the argument is try to get the call right, then let's use it on everyone. But then the game's going to last 6 hours.
Yeah. I think more of the specialized pitching because remember you got the pitchers, Jack Morris, all those guys, they went 7-8 innings. They were designed to go 9 innings.
Right.
That's what they were built to do. And if they didn't, it felt like a failure, right?
Right.
So you look at, like I was telling my son about DeGrom, right?
Right.
The guy won 10 games and wins the Cy Young. Right. Because the guy could have won 20 if they let him go a couple extra innings.
Right.
But his bullpen blew it for him.
I know. Craziness. I mean, if the guy goes 6 now, you think it's wow, went a long way tonight.
Well, you're getting paid for 6 now.
Absolutely. Right.
You're getting paid for 6.
Right. Yeah. And then, you get in the playoffs and it's all at the door. You just put a guy in and get him out, Yeah. So.
Well, the big, you really are worth your weight when you get to the playoffs.
Right.
I remember El Duque.
Right.
El Duque could be 11-10 during the regular season. Come the playoffs, he was like,
right.
He was like, that's it. Nobody was touching him.
Right. Exactly.
You have those kind of players.
Right.
You got to the playoffs. These guys stepped up, and you guys they caved.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think a lot of the teams today, they're built for the regular season, but not the playoffs. The Yankees are not built for the playoffs. They're just not.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know enough. I haven't watched actually enough to really say for sure, but I do know some teams I like them better than others in the playoffs. And for some reason, the Yankees they have a great lineup and seem like they have a pretty solid team, but just can't really, I will say I don't like the 1-game playoff thing. I don't like the wild card 1 game.
But that's not, to me, that's not a playoff game.
You can have a second best record in baseball and you got to play 1 game. Makes no sense to me. And in hockey and basketball,
look at the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers this year, they had the second best record in baseball playing in a 1-game playoff.
1 game. Right. So, I don't know.
But it does make it interesting. The postseason does make it more interesting.
Yeah. And you said before, I don't understand. Basketball and hockey, everybody in the world makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
But we're worried about adding another team in baseball? Makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's fun. So, anyway.
So, Mike, we're closing in an hour. Can you give some final words of wisdom to pitchers, players, parents, coaches as we close out? Just give them, doesn't matter.
Yeah, just real quick, and I know I touched on this before, but listen, the kids are doing whatever they're doing because it's fun. I'm talking about baseball, is they're playing the game because it's fun. Just understand when you're at a game and you're hearing you yell, the kids are looking at you out of the side of their eyes. They're embarrassed. They probably got some friends there. They don't want to strike out. They want to strike out less than you want them to strike out. Or on the mound, they don't want to walk anybody or pitch bad. They want to do as best they can. So let them play. The sun's going to rise the next day, whether they play great or play terrible. Just let them enjoy the time, and I promise you it'll pay off in the end. And my son's 24 years old. We had some great talks about we laugh at each other a little bit in some of the things we did and said. But again, it's fun. And I look back at my situation. Baseball was never my goal to play professionally, ever. I mean, I'm sitting here in my office, and my financial advisor went to Duke University. I went to be a student, and thank goodness it was there, because a lot of people, actually one of my best friends, is still talking about why he didn't make it. Either the coach didn't like him or he got hurt. The guy's 53 years old. I mean, how sad is that, right? So
Like we're not. It's like we're in
I'm
the high
supposed to
school
admit,
varsity.
I
Jack.
wasn't the best guy. There were many guys who were as good as I was. Why did I make it? I don't know. Got with a team that wasn't very good in the 90s. I pitched good at a certain time. I had Tom Kelly who believed in me. There was a lot of factors I had no control over. So just enjoy yourselves. Don't get caught up in all this recruitment crap and drafted stuff and sign a free agent, because there's a lot of fun stuff in this world, and baseball's one of them. Just one. That's it. So anyway,
Thank
that's
you,
my
Mike.
words of wisdom, like my father. I like my old man. So anyway,
Thank you, Mike, for coming on Monday
thank you
afternoon.
so much, buddy.
I'm going to be sharing this out at 8 o'clock at night. I'll be sharing it out to about 30, 40 baseball groups.
Good.
And I hope, people always watch these things. I usually get about 3,000 views, and hopefully, someone picks up something, right? That's what it's all
Absolutely right. Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Mike, thank you so much for hopping on. Peace
All
out.
right, pal.
Thank
See you,
you.
buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.